Hi, everyone. My name is Julie. I am the co-founder of Funnel Gorgeous, and today I want to give a little class on domains. And we find one of the biggest areas where people struggle when it comes to setting up their FG Funnels account is understanding domains. We have a ton of walkthrough videos that we give, but sometimes even those are too far along the path. And since we ascribe to the philosophy that there is no such thing as a stupid question, today I want to go several steps back and teach people about domains as a whole so that all of those explainer videos will make sense. All right, let's go ahead and pull up my slide deck here. Go ahead and get this into full screen for you. And we are starting at the beginning here, domains 101, okay? And what is a domain, right? It's a unique web address, something like example.com. It's friendly, it's memorable, and it helps people locate a web page on the internet that is hosted on a computer or a data center somewhere. The true address of that website is actually a string of numbers, and this is what a typical IP address looks like. But newer IP addresses may actually look like this, and nobody can remember that, right? And so instead of typing in a string of numbers, you type in something memorable. So let's think about a site like CNN.com, right? It's super busy. It's actually going to have multiple IP addresses where that site is hosted, and that's just because there's so much traffic coming to it. And the only thing the human has to remember to get to that site is to go to CNN.com. If you ever want to look up the IP address of a website, you can. And so for a site like this, it might look like this, but then it may look like something later. And low traffic sites are only going to have one IP address. High traffic sites might have multiple, but at the end of the day, they all have a domain. All right. How do the domain and the IP address connect? You buy a domain, but yet the website is hosted on some server somewhere. And there's something called the DNS. That's the domain name system. And this is like a switchboard, if you will, of the internet. Think about the olden days when, there were like switchboard and people were like connecting calls. So when someone types in an address like example.com, the domain name system or the DNS says, well, hey, what IP address is CNN.com at? And then it sends you to that correct IP address. When you purchase a domain, you are purchasing it at a registrar. And I realized I misspelled this. There should be an I right here. You're purchasing it at a registrar. These are some examples: GoDaddy, Namecheap, Cloudflare, Google, Bluehost. You also have places like Squarespace, FG Funnels, ClickFunnels, and Kajabi. Now, some registrars are free, right? So you don't have to sign up and pay for a GoDaddy account, but you pay every time you purchase a domain, right? Other places like Squarespace, FG Funnels, ClickFunnels, you're actually charging, you're paying for that software because it's doing a bunch of things for you. And then they offer registrar services within the tool. If you ever leave one of these services, you'll have to move your domain registrar. Otherwise, you'll just keep paying the monthly fee for the domain. The reason why people like to buy domains inside of hosted tools is because there's no setup. You buy the domain, voila, it's there. Whereas if you buy it in one of these free places, the DNS manager area is usually not very good. You have to move the management of the domain, which we'll talk about in a little while, and then you have to figure out how to import it. So it's very convenient to buy domains inside of hosted tools, but just make sure you're on a tool that you're going to stick around for a while. All right. Now, there are two things that you need to know about your domain specifically. The registrar, which is what we've been talking about, is that's where you pay your yearly fee to own the domain. The DNS records are the spot inside the registrar where you manage the actual instructions about where the domain points to. Most registrars have a DNS record area. So if you sign up for GoDaddy and you purchase a domain there will be a DNS manager records area inside of GoDaddy. But some of the DNS managers are good and some of them are not. And I always liken this to the difference between owning a BMW or a Kia. So when people buy domains, if they buy them at like, I don't know, Namecheap, for example, they don't want to actually use the DNS manager in Namecheap because it sucks. It's like a Kia. So, sorry, no offense to people who own Kias. So, we actually want to manage the domain somewhere else with a nicer DNS record. And that's going to become really important here in a minute. You can own a domain at GoDaddy, but then manage the domain at a site like Cloudflare. And Cloudflare is the best choice for a DNS manager. It's fast, it's efficient, it's great. And in order to do this, if you own a domain, and you can replace GoDaddy with Namecheap, one-in-one, Bluehost, anywhere, right? If you purchased a domain inside a tool, you usually don't do this because it's already being managed inside the tool, okay? But if you own a domain at GoDaddy and you want to manage it at Cloudflare, this is what you need to do. It all comes back to the name servers, okay? The name servers it's like a little address and it's always inside your registrar account. And the name servers are telling the DNS system where the DNS records are. As a classic example, let's say you buy a domain at GoDaddy, you pay $10 a year to own that domain, and you want to manage the domain at Cloudflare, right? That is the best place to manage your domains. So you set up a Cloudflare account, but now you have to manage it from there. So you're going to go into your GoDaddy account and you're going to find the name servers and you're going to change the name servers to Cloudflare. And that's saying, hey, the domain is being managed at Cloudflare. And this is what a name server outline name looks like, okay? It'll have a couple of initials, a number, and then it'll say the site where you're managing the DNS. Okay, there's usually two, and you have to change both. In GoDaddy, if you were doing Cloudflare, it'd be like ns1.cloudflare.com and ns2.cloudflare.com, right? You always have to look and see what the name servers are at Cloudflare, and then go into GoDaddy, find the name servers. Goodness gracious. Find the name servers, change it. And at that point, your domain will be managed in Cloudflare. The difference between the word own and manage is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Okay, these are two words not to mix up. You own the domain somewhere and you manage the domain somewhere. It can be the same place or a different place, depending on what the name servers say. All right, really, really important when you are working with our team at FG Funnels to get your domains going. They're going to ask you, where is the domain owned and where is the domain managed? Let's talk a little bit about the different types of domains. There are root level domains. These are your basic domains that everyone knows, right? Like CNN.com. Then there's something called subdomains, and subdomains have a couple of letters or numbers, a period, and then the root level domain. When you own a domain, you can actually make unlimited again, I think I spelled this wrong. Unlimited. I did this late at night. Unlimited subdomains if you wish. So you could do us.cnn.com, you could do world.cnn.com, you could do finance.cnn.com, anything you want, okay? The numbers and letters that come after the domain or the .com are the path. So here you've got cnn.com/news today or us.cnn.com/news-today. These are paths. And as you can imagine, you can make an unlimited number of paths off your domain. So if you own cnn.com, you can have a million pages, whatever your brain can come up with paths. You can also have unlimited subdomains. Now you can purchase domains that are .com, .net, .gov, .edu, .net again, .co, .me, and .ai. You guys, I'm proving that AI did not build this slide deck because of how many mistakes are in it. Goodness, I built this at midnight. Anyway, people ask us a lot, should I buy a .com? Ideally, yes. Why? Just because people remember the .com. But if you buy other ones, that's okay too. Kathy and I actually disagree on this a lot. She thinks it's imperative that you get a .com. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's okay. It depends. It depends on your goals as a business owner. Important. A root domain can only point to one place, and every individual subdomain can point to one place. So you can have unlimited pages on either a root domain or a subdomain by using domain paths. But juliechanel.com can only go to my website. And juliechanel.com/about can only go to my about page or my courses page, okay? And it's the same thing for subdomains. So it all has to be unique addresses that are looking for those pages. The question between HTTP versus HTTPS, the S basically stands for secure. It means this is secure. So if you put your credit card information in or you put password, you're fine. If the S is not there, it's not secure. Most domains that you buy today automatically come with what's called an SSL certificate, and therefore you'll notice are the HTTPS. But if you ever are trying to configure a domain and it's throwing that danger error, you may have just used the HTTP, which is why it's throwing that error. You forgot the S, or possibly you bought the domain without the site certificate. But again, most places sell it with that. So it would have to be a super old domain from some janky place. Okay. The next question is, do we use the www or do we not use the www? This is called the root domain without the www, okay? It's also called the apex. It's also called the naked domain. That you'll hear that. www.example.com is technically a subdomain of this, right? So look, us.cnn.com, right? The www is coming before the root and there's a period. So it's a subdomain, which means technically example.com and www.example.com are two different addresses. Super annoying. This is old school, right? When the web was the World Wide Web. And that's super annoying because 99.99999% of times you want the same web page to come up, whether someone types in the www or not. What we do is we make the www version an alias of the other. Basically, it just means, hey, this is really this. This points to this, okay? And which direction can you point? Technically, you can point it anywhere. You could like set up this domain and then point this one to it, or you could set up this domain and point this one to it. We like to set up the root naked apex domain and then make this one an alias of it. Okay, that's how we like to do it. Try not to overthink that. All right, this is a big slide here. I'm going to move my little screen. There are 4 types of domains that you use inside of FG Funnels. Now, the first is a root domain. This is a core domain that you're going to use for a core funnel, for your business website. Here's an example, juliechanel.com. You can take your WW version and point it to your naked version. And you can actually have as many root domains as you want inside your FG Funnels account. Like, I think Funnel Gorgeous has like 50 because we always buy new domains for offers, but we have one that like rules them all, and it is funnelgorgeous.com. Okay. The second type of domain you're going to need is an email subdomain. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when you are sending email as a business, you are held to a higher standard than if you email as just a person. There are 2 things you need. The first is you need a business email address, which looks like this, okay? It's got the root domain in the address after the @ okay? So if this is your root domain, this is your email address. And you need to actually make an email subdomain that we use for your sending authority, okay? So here is a good example, mail.juliechanel.com, replies.juliechanel.com, mg.julie, whatever, it doesn't really matter what this is, okay? But this is the email subdomain. Remember, you can make unlimited subdomains that's not going to cost you more. So you have to create a subdomain. This is good enough. You'll have decent deliverability, meaning the majority of people will see your emails. But if you really want to do it right, technically, if you're going to make this your subdomain, you should actually have an email address that exactly matches your subdomain. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nobody is actually going to remember this, which we understand. Nobody actually does remember that. But we still create it. And that's because we just forward all of this to here. Okay. And once they're in your inbox, you can reply as your normal self. But this is the chef's kiss of deliverability. We have plenty of people who do this. It is a technical good enough, but this is like if you want to make sure that your email authority and reputation is as strong as humanly possible, this is what we recommend. The third type of domain that you might use inside of FG Funnels is a membership domain, a portal domain. It's basically where you host courses, a client portal, or communities. This would be an example, portal.juliechanel.com. This would be free. I would just set up a subdomain and then I'd use it. If you want to, you can buy a second root domain like juliechanelsportal.com. You really have a choice here. You can do whatever you want. We usually recommend just doing a subdomain because you don't really need to spend extra money. One we like portal.juliechanel.com. We like school.juliechanel, community, go, words like that. The fourth type of domain you might use inside of FG Funnels is a branded link. Now, there are times inside of the software, things like your calendar or forms and surveys, possibly invoices, there's going to be a little link that's generated when you send those things out. And we offer one option there. We take your root domain and then we add a subdomain in front of it, like link.juliechanel.com, calendar.juliechanel.com, etc. And we go ahead and set that up for you. That way it doesn't say link.fgfunnels.com, something like that. Now, how do we get these domains usable inside the software? Well, all these domains are owned somewhere. They are managed somewhere, okay? And then configured first inside the software that has the DNS. So we have to actually go where the DNS is to configure all those rules to make them usable inside of FG Funnels. In most cases, this will be Cloudflare. Again, if you own a domain from Namecheap or GoDaddy, we're going to say manage the domain in Cloudflare. Then we're able to use them in FG Funnels after that's done. So we set up our DNS records, then we go back into FG Funnels and we pull them in and they work. Now, if the domain is not managed in Cloudflare, we have to move it there first. Trying to manage DNS in other softwares will make you want to poke your eyes out. The only exception to this rule is if you buy any of these domains inside of FG Funnels itself, it's already hooked up to Cloudflare. Why do you need an email sending domain? People ask us this. They didn't realize this. They're like, I have a business email address. Isn't that enough? But email deliverability is a big issue these days because spam has run rampant. And email inbox services like Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, they actually will stop your email from being delivered unless it's verified. And you might say, I never heard about this when I was on Flowdesk. I never heard about this when I was on Kit or ActiveCampaign. And here's a dirty little secret that we don't like to share, but it's true. When you look at your stats, it'll often say how many people opened it, how many people clicked, but it doesn't actually often show if it ever got delivered. So if you've ever wondered like, I got a 20% open rate. Does that mean it got 100% delivered and 20% of people opened it? Or does it mean that only 70% of it got delivered and then 20% opened that? It's a good question, right? What we want to do is make sure that you have a business domain that is attached to your business email and it matches it. And we do that in the DNS with something called text records. And that way the service like Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, they're like, okay, this person is legit. They're not a scammer or a spammer. What if you are migrating to FG Funnels, but the main domain that you want to use is already hosting your website somewhere else? And if you don't want to take the site down, here's what we recommend. You're going to build your new site inside of FG Funnels and you're not going to establish a domain. It's fine. You can totally build the whole thing. It'll be on a preview link. It'll be like, I don't know, preview.app.fgfunnels or something like that. Once it's ready and everything's hooked up, then you can get the domain and begin the process of changing the DNS so that it can be configured in FG Funnels. Okay. Now, if you want to leave your site where it is, if you're like, you know what, I've had this site forever, I love it, it's on WordPress, that's totally fine. What you want to do is you want to go into the DNS area of the domain that you own and you want to set up some subdomains, okay? Subdomains for email, your portal, your branded link. Just leave your root domain alone, your naked domain alone. And then we can use those subdomains inside of your FG Funnels account. You will need another root domain for your funnels. Can you use a subdomain? Technically, you could go and buy funnels.juliechanel.com and use that. But we often say, you know what, if you're going to leave your site where it is and you want to use FG Funnels for other things, just buy a brand new domain right inside of FG Funnels that you can use for your funnels. Customer support at FG Funnels does offer concierge onboarding. Everything that I'm explaining here, we do for you. That's why I'm not walking you through the windows, because we can import your root domain. If you have it already live, we can leave it alone. We can set up your email subdomain, we can set up your portal subdomain, and we can set up your branded link subdomain. And we are going to have to go inside of your DNS manager. And that's why we ask for that all that information. Now, do we explain how to do all of this? Yes. And the reason why I'm giving this foundational talk is because a lot of people, even though they don't necessarily want to do it themselves, they want to understand what is going on and why we're doing what we're doing. How do we get your domains accessible? Okay, I'm going to just repeat it again because I know this is a lot of techno jargon. We change the name servers at your domain registrar, where we own it. We point it to Cloudflare. Cloudflare is now your BMW DNS manager. Then we set up the DNS settings in Cloudflare accordingly. We'll talk about DNS in a minute. Then we're able to import it into FGF. And alternatively, yes, you can always buy new domains inside of FGF. The only domain that we say, you know what, don't buy an FGF is a root domain that would also serve as your business email address. So if you are a personal brand, I buy Julie Chanel. My email is julie@juliechanel. It's better to buy that at Google Workspace. The reason why is you're going to get the best of all worlds. You're going to get the Gmail inbox, you're going to get the business email, you're going to get all of that. We're still going to manage the domain in Cloudflare. Okay, and we can use the domain inside of FG Funnels, but you get a nice Gmail business inbox. That's the only domain that we recommend you don't buy inside of FG Funnels. Let's talk about the DNS manager. Now, this is where you're actually setting the DNS records. This is very technical. This is what we do for you. And these records tell the internet things like where your website lives, where your emails go, what domain is an alias of another. And this is what has to be configured before FG can use the domain. There are 4 types of records. There are the A records, the CNAME records, the MX records, and the text records. Should actually say TXT, take out the E. Okay, this is literally the record that says this domain goes to this IP address. Okay, that's what I was talking about at the beginning with CNN. The CNAME is the subdomain alias. Okay, so we take the www and we add a CNAME record that says, you know what, that's really just the naked domain. Just go there. Okay, it's not an actual separate subdomain. MX records are all about email. This tells the internet where to deliver email for your domain. And the text records are all different kinds of records that are used for security, verification, proving that you own the domain. Now, the kinds of text records that we want to set up inside of your DNS manager have a lot to do with your email. These are the 3 most common ones, and you'll hear us talk about these, right? The SPF record, the DKIM record, and the DMARC. You don't really need to understand what it's doing. You just need to follow the steps. And these are helping make sure that your email sending domain, your emails don't end up in spam. Each record is going to ask for 4 things, once in a while 5. It's going to ask you, okay, what type of record are you creating, right? One of the 4. Then it's going to ask what you're creating the record for. That's the name. And most often we use the @ symbol. What is the value? Okay. And this is where you're going to plop in an IP address, another domain, a mail server that you're using for email. And then the TTL is how long the internet should remember this record before checking it again. And we often just say leave them however they are. The last one is a priority. This is mostly for email, and if you have multiple records for multiple like email mail servers, it's going to just prioritize them in which one goes first and second. And if you don't understand that, this is okay. I'm only half understanding it and I'm teaching it. It's pretty technical, but it's a lot of just copy paste, copy paste. Just put this here, put that there. You just have to know where your DNS is and what the copy paste are. But again, with concierge onboarding, we do a lot of this work for you. Now, things that might come up. This is extremely technical, so you can pop off this video because everything that I've told you so far is the overview. But if you are doing it yourself, or if we're doing it, these are some things that come up. Inside of Cloudflare, you'll notice that the records have little cloud icons next to it, orange or gray. And it's basically asking, do we turn it on, the proxy on, or do we turn it off? Basically, on means all the traffic goes through Cloudflare before the destination, okay? It adds speed and security, but sometimes it can impact deliverability. Gray just means it's going straight to its destination, okay? So during setup, we always tell you this in the support docs, but if you want to screenshot this, this is which ones should be orange or gray, okay? The second thing that might come up is you might change the DNS records and things will not work immediately. And this is what we call DNS propagation. This is how long it takes for the change to spread across thousands of servers around the world. It usually takes about 15 minutes with Cloudflare, but it could take up to 48 hours in rare cases. Or if you were using a DNS record in a really bad tool like Namecheap, it could take much longer. This is one of the reasons why we love Cloudflare so much, okay? Things may not work, they may be broken, but try to not panic. You'll usually see things will say not verified. You can keep refreshing, and then eventually you'll see them. Okay, things that may come up. This I just want to explain. There are a lot of the same names for one thing, right? This is naked domain, root domain, apex domain, okay? Try not to worry if you see a word and think, oh my gosh, I'm stupid. No, there's just a lot of names, and the internet is like developed over time, and so things can sometimes be messy. Now, there is a little bit of an issue with the SSL setting that you have to change. And this is just one of those things that when you're in Cloudflare and you're fixing your domains, you are going to just want to make sure to click on Cloudflare, your SSL certificate configure, and select full. Okay, this will show up in our support docs. The email infinite loop. If you do set up your email forwarding, now remember when I said that it's ideal to have an email address that has the actual subdomain in it. Well, we allow you to do forwarding, okay? But when you forward, you want to forward to a regular address, okay? If you accidentally forward it to the subdomain address, it's going to just create a loop, okay? And the reason why we do this is because nobody actually wants an inbox that's set up like this, but we want to make sure that this sending email address has the best deliverability. So we send with this email address, right? And then when people reply, they're replying to this, but that inbox doesn't exist. So what we do is we set up email forwarding and it heads to the actual right inbox, okay? All right, another thing that might come up, you might hear us talk about SMTP. SMTP means Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and it's a standard technology that every email server uses to send messages. And we already have our built-in SMTP, and it's called LC Mail. And when you set up your account, that's what you're using. But some customers, especially our bigger customers, they might want to use their own SMTP. And that's like think about FG funnels is the car and the SMTP is the engine. We have an engine that's already built in, but sometimes they're like, no, 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 I need to go faster. So they buy their own engine and they stick it in to the software. Okay. And it's called a custom SMTP. And things like Mailgun or SendGrid would be those things. Now, you can see I'm pulling this from our customer service agent support because I want you to understand is that if the customer, if you are using LC Mail, we are going to set up your subdomain as a part of onboarding. But if you want to use your own SMTP, we actually don't set that up. So this is for more advanced, larger customers. They're going to go ahead and set up their own SMTP and bring it in. Okay. A few things might come up with email sending. We often we often hear people say, well, I didn't have to do this at ActiveCampaign or Kit or Flowdesk. And we understand that. But these three simple records are going to make it easier for your emails to land in the inbox. Okay. And this is where you want to look. This is what you want to set up. It takes 10 minutes. It's annoying, but it is worth it. Okay. The last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to leave this in the show notes, is we have a little domain glossary. And what this does is it pulls up a glossary of a bunch of things that I have said here in this class. So if any of them you get confused or you get lost, and then we have a couple of things that are related to our specific FG funnels, but you can click on anything and it will show you the definition. And then it has some related records as well. And this is all just to help our people understand domains, understand how important it is to configure your domains properly, and to remember that there is no such thing as a stupid question, and we will do most of the hard work for you. All right, talk to you soon. Bye.